I haven't been working on it all that much just because of crazy stuff that's been happening regarding life and whatnot, but I want to get everything that I've made up on Gumroad and ArtStation that I can anyways, because quite literally I have sold most of these products individually, and I have made quite a bit of what I've on an individual level. I've actually reduced the prices on these a lot. So for example, if you were to look at the flying high scene that I have for view, I actually made that as a personal project and somebody wanted to buy it, and at the time I was like, oh, you know what, this, I spent a lot of time making this. The clouds in there you can export as VDBs, or even as masks, so you can throw them into a different program to get the clouds that you want, and it would turn out to be exactly like that. You get the model and all that stuff, and I sold it for like $550, but now you buy it for just, you know, a couple dollars. And I figured that'd be fair because it's an older model, and the guy who bought that unfortunately passed away. He was a good old friend of mine who actually got me introduced into 3D modeling and rendering and stuff like that, and unfortunately he passed away, but he was actually my first customer, and he bought it for $550, and even then he said that I was underselling it quite a bit. And I do undersell my products, not because I don't believe in their value, but because I know that as artists, people tend to not have a lot of money, and you have to make your dollars stretch as far as possible. So I really want to take care of people by giving them assets to work with that they, you know, they can just buy really quickly, but not break the bank. So I'm hoping it's a decent business model, but I guess time will tell. All right, height. So let's increase the height here just a bit on the minimum. We'll do about half. So let's do about 50%. So from about half of the landscape to the current top, we'll do an auto level. Which I don't think that did quite enough. Let's do equalize. Didn't seem like it did much. Essentially what I want to do is extend this part up just a tad bit more and then do all my eroding, but I think the process here makes perfect sense for people who are just starting. Again, this is all beginner stuff, so I don't want to make things too chaotic. This is a very straight and linear graph node, so there's not a whole lot going on, so I think this will be good for a beginner to follow along with. Quickly, on the new bleeding edge versions of Gaea, you can create different sections of your graph. So for example, right here I have my base terrain right here. So yeah, we'll just do all that. So if I were to select all those, I can put those into a different graph to keep things nice and clean. So right here we can right click on where it says graph, go to rename and call this like base, and then hit this plus button right here. That'll make a new graph. You can name this something like erosion. And go back over here to our graph, select all your erosion nodes, go to your menu button right here, and then move the selected nodes to the erosion graph. And now it moved them from this graph to this graph, but they are all still connected. They just get connected through a portal. And so you still have your live options here. And that just makes things a lot easier to kind of manage your graph node with. Of course, it doesn't really help people understand what you're doing in your graph unless you were to break down the graphs one by one. But it does make it so when you have, in my case, in some cases in the past, I've had literally thousands of nodes. This makes it so much easier to break it down and keep things nice and organized. You can also right click a node. So if we have like our thermal here, you can right click a node and you can make like a note. And then in here we can say thermal erosion so bad A that I pooped myself. And then you can do a markdown preview And so you hit OK. So when you hover over this, it gives you the note right there. Thermal erosion so bad that I pooped myself. And yeah, portals are super handy. I recommend using portals anytime that you can get away with it. I don't recommend using portals that break up graph nodes that are doing similar things. So if you are using a graph node to make your base terrain, I wouldn't use a portal, except for maybe if you had a lot of selections that you're repeating over and over again, like this height selection maybe. I wouldn't recommend using a portal to break that up, but I would use a portal to break up my base terrain and my erosion, because those are doing two separate things. And then I would use another portal and a different graph for like coloring. And then from here we can, let's say you made like all your graph options here, and then you wanted to add something here. Can't really, there's no easy way to do that except for by going to the last node that you want to connect to. So in this case, I want to connect to the thermal. I want to throw in a texture. So what I'll do is I'll select the texture, connect it to my thermal, so it would build out the texture. And then from here, I'll take the texture, and then I'll move that to coloring. And then it'll create the portal for you automatically, and it's connected. Super easy. And this is also nice because I'm not sure if the mutations in Gaea affect things in the graph separately, but to be more selective, if we wanted to change our overall shape of this landscape, we select all these nodes, and then we hit the mutations button right here. And what that'll do is it'll randomize the seeds, all the seeds in our selections and our terracing and our, all the nodes that we have selected, and it will build out an entirely new terrain for us, which is nice. And a lot of people, I haven't really seen a lot of people use the mutations option, and this is the mutations right here. You can mutate the nodes, just randomizes the seeds. That way you don't have to build out a whole new landscape from scratch. You can just keep what you have, and that makes it really nice when you have to make landscapes that are similar to each other but have different features. So like the erosion can remain the same, but the features of the landscape are different. In this case, it didn't really build something out that I personally would use, but that's easy. You can just go back and change the mutations again. I might, going back to that other question, Sauce Boss, I might actually go through and see if I can get into doing like the subscription learning platform on ArtStation. I would really like to become like a pro member of ArtStation, but right now I just can't really afford to do that because it's actually, so what I did is I had my own website I was maintaining, and I had spent a lot of time and money on that website, and I finally got it to where I liked it, and then I just couldn't really keep up doing it. And ArtStation's a lot cheaper every year. It's a lot cheaper, but it's still like kind of similar to what I was spending on my website. And what I would like to do is hopefully I can get enough of a base membership with my all content subscription or something where I can actually afford to pay either monthly or enough where I can set up like a savings account that I make from my subscriptions where I can afford to pay from a different pool of money for a pro subscription. That way I can actually have a lot easier time making new content for you guys, new tutorials, keeping up on all the new changes and whatnot, introducing new programs to talk about. But again, it just really comes down to how things go in the future, I suppose. And then we got this, and now we can start our coloring. So I'm not going to get into the coloring on this one because I have really good videos that explain how to do decent basic or intermediate texturing. I plan on making a video guide on how to do advanced texturing, and I'll do that as time goes by when I'm kind of done with the beginner's tutorial guide that I'm making. Yeah, it's just a subscription, and it's interesting too. Like, I don't necessarily work in the industry, but I work with people in the industry. So I'm actually I'm a support engineer for a company that sells flash storage arrays, and it's a really good job and I like it. It's a tech job. I really like the job. It takes a lot of time out of what I can do in 3D. And I actually have another thing that I'm doing where I'm flying. I initially wanted to be a pilot growing up, but there was the economic crash and it stopped me from being able to do things. So I essentially saved up a lot of money from the job I was working. I was a tower climber at the time. I climbed communication towers um, all over the place, all over Utah, Nevada, Wyoming, Arizona. I pretty much climbed every communication tower you'll ever see on the west coast of the United States, like no joke. And I made a lot of money doing that, but I also spent a lot of time working, so I didn't get to do a lot of 3D stuff. But I was able to save up enough money doing that job. I worked so much overtime, like I slept on site at the work sites. I camped out. I worked a lot of hours. I made a lot of overtime money, and I just essentially saved all that money to take flying lessons. So I actually wanted to be a pilot. So I'm almost done with that, but it has taken some time from there. But what I want to do was be a pilot and be a 3D modeler, landscape modeler, and I would be happy doing either or. But then, unfortunately, I actually have a really close friend that I've known my entire life that actually got into the industry, like as a environment artist for a game company. I don't want to name by name, but they tend to cause a lot of disruptions in the gaming market or the gaming industry. They like to release annual games, and they do so on a really strict schedule, and it actually took all the fun out of being a 3D environment artist, which is what my buddy always wanted to be as well. And he said that he would go back to just doing it as a hobby and doing what I'm doing more so, because it allows freedom to actually make what you truly want to make or teach what you really want to teach without this really strict schedule and guidelines. So he said he recommends just not pursuing that path, just kind of keep doing what you're doing, and I agree. There are people that I work with in the industry, but I'm not part of the industry. I'm really close to it. I'm like a contractor. If you want to put it short, I'm like a contractor. And I love doing that because I can sign up for whatever job I want. People will approach me to do jobs, and I can either agree or not agree. And what will always change my mind on a project is, hey, we want this big old thing that you're going to make for us, and we want to have all this stuff, but you have like 3 days to do it. I will straight up just say no. Like, if you want something that looks really good, something that looks fantastic, both while I'm making it and when it's rendered, you're going to have to allow enough time to do that. And if it's only going to be one person doing it, then yeah, you're going to have to allow a lot more time to do it other than 3 days. So I have turned down more jobs than I have accepted. But it's only because they wanted something so grand and so great in like less than a week. And granted, I can make something that looks good in like a day or two. But if they wanted like all the minute detail, animations, pre and post render art, clippings and stuff like that, yeah, you're gonna have to give me a lot more time than that. There's no way I'm gonna be pressured to make that money in that time, especially when I have a full-time job that I gotta do on top of that. And yeah, all the people that I know that work in the game industry absolutely hates working in the game industry. I have a close acquaintance, I guess I would say. He's not really a friend, but he's an acquaintance that I talk to often about the industry, and he actually just works as a VFX artist for a studio, and he absolutely loves it. But they also have like a year or two to work on their projects. The game companies usually release on an annual or biannual like schedule, or even quicker, I guess, or even less time. It just depends on the project. But they might release on a biannual release schedule, but that doesn't mean that they get 2 years to work on the project. They might have all the development, all the AI work, all of the major hard meshes made, but then other people in other parts of the different departments might only have like 2 or 3 months. And he said that they had a game that they were working on for like 2 years. They didn't even know that they were going to be making the landscapes for the game. They just kind of came in and said, hey, by the way, we're working on this project now. You have like 4 months to make everything, and then we're going to release it. So make sure everything looks good. And their team of like 20 people like stopped what they were doing and started making all the assets that they wanted, and they released it, but it was stressful. Don't interrupt, but before you end at the start of your Mesa range, you stated by connecting the multifractal as mask for the Perlin, you can discuss the difference of doing that and combining them instead. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent. I tend to do that, especially with these off-the-cuff things. Yeah, so let's delete this and let's go back to, actually, you know, let's just make a new one. And I think we're going to wrap this up after we talk about this. So yeah, you can use multifractal. Not stated, yeah, stated. So the end of the start of your Mesa range, you stated by connecting, or you started by connecting the multifractal as a mask for the Perlin. Can you discuss the difference of doing that and combining them instead? Yeah, so it was actually a multifractal and a Voronoi is what I was using. So I had a multifractal and a Voronoi. And the reason why I chose a Voronoi was, oh, that's all right, man. I can talk about the industry for a while. It's one of the reasons why I didn't really apply for a game industry job. I've been given offers that were really good, but I just didn't accept them. If this will build, if it doesn't build, we'll just relaunch it. It's still, but like I said, Gaea is a baby program, so there's going to be some issues with it. But as it's the nice thing about Gaea is that it's just constantly being developed, so it's really good. Let's do a new project. Got my dogs barking. If you can hear that, I apologize. Okay, so to kind of go off of what Bob asked, at the beginning of the stream, I was using the multifractal and a Voronoi, and you can use Perlin too, it doesn't really matter, but I chose Voronoi specifically because it has these really cool features like these peaks you can, that you can see here, and these deep grooves. But overall, the Voronoi noise at its core is just very bland. There's not a lot of very good sharp detail like the multifractal has. So if you were to take the multifractal and put that as a mask as a Voronoi, you retain the features of the Voronoi, but you mask in a lot of those sharp details. So let's take this Voronoi, copy it, and let's look at it before and after. So we'll just go about right here. And you can see we have these peaks, and the multifractal, we have all this messy noise, which is nice, but not here. So if we combine the two with the mask, we keep the peaks, but we also get to keep a lot of the details from the multifractal. So the question is why not just combine them? And you can definitely do that. So if we do the multifractal here, and then you combine them together, let's do like a 50% blend. You'll notice that we do keep the peaks here, but we also keep some of the multifractal details here. So over here, Voronoi first. So over here we have our peaks and our ridges. Hardly no detail anywhere else though. It's pretty bland at its core. Multifractal here we have really interesting features everywhere. And then we put them together, we blend them together, we get the details in, and we retain a lot of the ridges. You want to learn Gaea to do landscapes with Blender? Yeah. Everything that you do in Gaea, you would do for pretty much any other 3D program, which is export a height map or OBJ, and it'll work with Blender about the same. So anything that you're learning here, there's hardly any workflow changes for Blender. Blender's really great that way. It's pretty open and can accept pretty much everything. When you combine them with like a 50% blend here, you keep some of the major features of the Voronoi, but you're introducing another node here, and it's a lot harder to control. So say you found and this is why I would go about doing a mask with the multifractal. Say you found a really cool Voronoi seed that you liked. We'll just use this one for example. You say, okay, this is really cool, but I want to keep like these peaks and these ridges, but I want to introduce the details of a different noise on top of it, which will cut down a lot of it, but will give me some more detail at the same time. You can use a mask where now we keep those details from the Voronoi, but now we've introduced just the noise from the multifractal. In the blend, we're combining the two together. And so you're getting features from both that you might not want. So doing it this way, you don't introduce another node that you have to worry about building out, and you only bring in the detail of the mask, which is the multifractal. So if we use a different seed, let's change the seed up. Let's do another one. Something like this. We keep the overall shape of our Voronoi that we had before, but now we just introduce the noise details of the mask. Hopefully that makes sense. In this case, we have our overall features, but now we're combining the two different details together, and it might not be something we want. Is Gaea suitable for massive landscapes? Processing is slower than World Machine. Yes, it is suitable for massive landscapes. I actually haven't tested huge landscapes in Gaea, but I have made pretty large landscapes. So, for instance, in World Machine, I did the entire state of Utah, like I stated in the last live stream. In Gaea, I've probably have done all of where I live, the county that I live in. That's about as large as I've done, but only because I was doing that as a project at the time, and it worked really well. Oh, good, Bob. Good. I hope it did. Yeah, if you just want to maintain the details of the noise that's used as a mask, combine them together as a mask. Other than that, use a combine to get the details of both to come through, and you blend them together. So, but yeah, it's I think it's suitable for larger landscapes. I think the processing in Gaea is like the opposite of what you said. I think it's faster than World Machine in a lot of ways. Granted, it's still a new program, so World Machine's been around since like the early 2000s. So it's been around for a really long time. Gaea's only been around for a few years, so there's got to be a lot of more tweaking that has to be done, but I think a lot of processing in Gaea is faster than in World Machine. Like, for example, when we were doing the thermal weathering on our mesa, thermal weathering in World Machine took me forever to do. I don't know what it was, but anytime I did any amount of thermal weathering in World Machine, it would just break my build, and it would take like an hour or two to build it out. But in Gaea, it only takes me, at 1K, it only took me like less than 2 seconds to build out the thermal weathering, and it gave me the same results that I would get in World Machine. So, I mean, it just really depends, but I would say it would be. In tiled builds, it's still experimental, but you can do a tiled build in Gaea just like you would in World Machine, and right now you only have split, and I think they don't have like any, it doesn't blend them, unfortunately. But yeah, it would definitely be suitable for large landscapes. Does your site have examples of your work tests you have created with Gaea, and if so, what is the URL? Or have an IG account? I don't have an Instagram account. I actually locked myself out of it, and I can't unlock it for some reason. I get all the information sent to my email to unlock my account, but then it doesn't unlock it, and I haven't been able to get the support. Instagram support to fix it. My website has actually been taken down, but I kept a copy of it in case I ever wanted to bring it back up. So it's actually a Wix account. So I used Wix because I didn't want to do all the programming and scripting and whatnot for my website. I can, but I didn't, and I don't want to worry about it. So I just used Wix, which was super easy. And things have been going down because I did turn it off, so I didn't want to keep it because it was getting expensive, and I think ArtStation's a really good compromise for it. So that's the URL to my website. It did have a portfolio on it at one point, but everything that you see in the backgrounds, I did like a space theme before I shut it down. It's supposed to be a very minimal website. So you have like a welcome splash screen, which doesn't have a lot on it. Yeah, I like Vivaldi a lot too. Vivaldi's great. I try not to stick with anything Google. I know this is built on Chromium, whatnot, but it's very fast. I like it a lot more than Chrome. But like this, I made this this planet. In the subscriptions, you'll see another similar render. It should pop up. Maybe I took it off, maybe not. But I have all my tutorial options in there as well, and they're in a nice streamlined approach. So if you wanted like Cinema 4D tutorials, you can get them here, and a lot of them are built, landscapes are built in Gaea in these newer videos, and they would just auto upload to my website after I posted them to YouTube, which made it really nice. And then I have like Gaea tutorials here where I talk about a lot of stuff. You can load more. Just made it really nice and streamlined. I want it to be minimal so you guys can just get right to the source. Like a lot of websites will have, hey, we have tutorials here, and then you have to go browse through a bunch of different crap to get to it. It's like, no, I just want a simple search, and I want a simple area to get to my tutorials where people can watch them. And that's essentially what I was going for. So it's a very minimal approach to a website. I have like my geoglyph tutorials when geoglyph came out. That was really nice. Octane, so on and so forth. Just everything. I have more Octane videos in this. They just didn't upload to the website for some reason. Then I had a forum, which I had just barely built. Some people actually looked at before I turned off my website. But I had stuff in here, so we had like general discussions where I just said hi to people for the first post, but then I had like tutorial requests, which I had a few people in here request tutorials. But yeah, the forefather guy, that's exactly right. I had 2 people request tutorials in there, I believe. Yeah, Tom, please show us how to export VDBs in Vue. So I considered it done, and then I actually made a video on how to export VDBs in Vue. So it worked out pretty well. But again, it was just getting expensive to keep things going, so I closed the site down. Then I had like site information where you can get everything you wanted. So we had like updates. This was like a blog. And then a bunch of free stuff in here. 3D scan subscription. So I was actually using this to help people get their own content out there. So this 3D scan subscription was a dude that was putting together all of his 3D scans for $1. It was really nice, and he's not doing it anymore, but at the time of this post he was putting it together for, you can get all of his scans for $1. It was a subscription, and then after about a year he'll turn the subscription off, and then people who were early adopters just kept everything that he uploads, but then everything after that, the subscription went up to like $100 a year or something like that. So I posted it here so people can get some insight on stuff. And I did try Patreon, but I actually don't agree with a lot of Patreon's ethics. They are very, I do a lot of updating stuff with like people who use Patreon for YouTube stuff and YouTube content, and I actually don't like their ethics and how they approach things. They censor a lot of stuff. And I was an early adopter to Patreon. I remember getting like one of the like first week that they launched or something like that. I got like a request to join, and I decided I would. I had maybe 2 people who were subscribed, but I didn't keep it because they did a lot of weird stuff with people where they're like turning people's like their sites on their Patreon sites down or whatever because they didn't agree with what they were doing, and that thing that they didn't do that they were doing that they didn't agree with was like so minor that it was like nitpicky, and I was just like, nah, I'm done. I don't like their ethics. I think ArtStation's a pretty good one to go to. It gives me a store and it gives me a place to post my content, and it's very unintrusive, and I haven't found anything that I don't agree with them ethically, so I just decided to stick with them. I might go back to Patreon, maybe, if I can find it in myself to forgive things that they've done to people who I like. Here's an example of what I think about nitpicky. I have a buddy who creates tutorials in 3ds Max, and he was talking about Wolfenstein 3D, the video game, the old one, not the new one, not the new remastered or the new series, but the old one back in like the 1990s. And he said like Nazi and swastika, but he wasn't talking about anything to do with Nazis or swastikas. He was just talking about like that's what you would find in the game, and they shut his Patreon down just for that. And I don't like that. I don't think you should be censoring people. Shouldn't be censoring people for what they say, especially when you're talking about history, or if you're talking about like things that are in a video game. Because what you were doing for your tutorial was, hey, we're going to be looking at how they did this in this new mastered version of this game, but we're going to be leaving out swastikas and Nazis, and then they ban him because he said those two things. I don't agree with that. I think it's stupid. You should be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about in whatever light, within the realm of reason. Obviously, I'm not going to say scream fire in a crowded movie theater. That's dumb. But I should be able to say, hey, we're going to be making a World War II style map, and we're going to have the Nazi Germany troops over here, and we're going to have the British and American troops over here, and we're going to put up each respective flags that they were using at the time, and then my channel gets banned because I had the swastika. That's stupid. I like it to be as fair and as historically correct as possible when I'm talking about those things, but I try to keep that stuff to a very minimum because I don't like talking about them anyways, especially when it involves my channel. So hopefully I don't even get banned for this, but I think YouTube is slightly better in that regard than Patreon. So let's I think we're actually done. So Bob, I hope that answered your question, and I hope we got around to making the Mesa features that everybody wanted. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask or anything right now, go ahead and ask, and then we'll try to get to them. Are you teaching? No. So my wife isn't teaching. So if we yeah, you have been demonetized, and I have been demonetized actually. So I used to monetize my videos a long time ago. At the time, you only needed like 1,000 subscribers or something like that to be monetized, but I've actually been demonetized. I don't know why. I keep politics out of my videos most of the time, or all of the time, I think. But I've been demonetized for some reason. But it's okay. I don't really want to be monetized. Like I was saying earlier, I want to be able to just make a video and get to it so you guys can learn. I don't want to inundate you with ads and things like that. If you have time, could you show how to use the lake node? I don't know if it's a bug, but the node stays red no matter what I plug in and nothing happens. Yeah. Yeah, wants blood. Yeah, let's go ahead and play with it. I actually haven't played with the lake node that much, so I think it would be interesting to play with it. But we want to actually have, if I remember correctly from the early plays that I've done with it, so I beta test a lot of this stuff. Not so much now because Gaia is more public than it was before, but the lake node was something that was being discussed before Gaia even released, and I remember playing around with it quite a bit. So let's see what we have here. I know we want to have some features that it needs to work with, so I think we'll just use a basic multifractal and an erosion node, just to keep it simple. And then let's see what we can do here. So this is going to be kind of like a learning experience for me as well. Let's I'm going to be printing something. My wife says she's going to print stuff, so if you have a printer, that's the case. So you have rain, you have an input, so you need to have something that tells it where it'll rain. Optionally, it might look like. Well, it looks like it put the lakes in for me. Didn't stay red. Might be a bug in your case. Hey Bob, you're welcome. You can stick around if you want, ask more questions. Or you can just follow along with anything that anybody else brings up. It might be beneficial. Let's do, so you can mask the amount of rain there is, but I think the precipitation is what's going to overall, it's going to be the overall usage, yeah. So it just increases the amount of lakes that are being created. Lesser precipitation just means that there's not as much water. We can increase the amount of small lakes, so I think that would be like kind of like this stuff. Just increase the amount that is. Yeah, you can see these smaller lakes coming in. And what's nice is that they appear on areas that make sense. So up here you have like a relatively flat area, so there's going to be water up there. A flood control. Let's increase the water flow. Let's see what that does. So that just kind of increases again, just kind of increases where the water floor starts. So you don't have to add as much water, it looks like, in the precipitation, but you can actually change where it actually starts. That's pretty nice. Then you have your shore size. This will be like your erosion, your beach erosion, I think. You can create your shore for it and then throw in your beach erosion and do some cool stuff. Let's decrease it. Let's get a better idea of what it's doing here. Doesn't look like it changed much in that case. Or in that case. Altitude bias, maybe? Size bias. Looks like it's not really changing much in the shore formation, but I might just be missing something. Like I said, I don't really use the lake node much, but because it's new, first of all, but also because I just haven't tested it. But it doesn't look like it's bugging out for me, so it could just be your installation, Andrew. What I would recommend is what has been recommended in the past is uninstalling Gaea and then reinstalling it, but doing a clean installation of it. So you'll get the option to reinstall Gaea. You'll get the option to either just install or do a clean install. I would do a clean install, and if that doesn't work, uninstall Gaea. You'll have to go into like your app data on your. If you're using Windows, it'll be go to computer users app data, and I think it's in roaming or in local. It's in one of those two folders, but there'll be like a quad spinner or a Gaea folder. Delete that and then reinstall Gaea. It'll recreate everything, and then that might work for you. Hopefully that answers your question, but it looks like this is all you have to do. You have to have something for the lakes to work with. So you got to have like your landscape, obviously, but using like an erosion to give it some data to work with, and then your lakes, it looks like it's working for me. I'm kind of interested in finding something else out now. Let's do a mask. We'll attach that to the erosion, and let's edit this out, and let's put it like right here. And then attach that to the rain. Yeah, there we go. I thought that would work. So what that does is it just creates a mask where you put that one lake. It doesn't work. Oh, that's no bueno. I am not opposed to helping you guys do any of like the advanced troubleshooting for this kind of stuff. I've done it for people in the past. We just use a remote desktop tool where I'll go in and do like the basic troubleshooting steps to getting stuff to work. But everything I just told you to do with like, at least if you're on Windows, to delete everything out of like the local or roaming folder that involves Gaea. Don't delete anything in there except for when you first uninstall Gaea, and then delete any of the quad spinner or Gaea folders. Let's see here. Let's actually just take a look. I don't have anything in here that's worrisome. So Dylan app data, and so it's gonna be.
No, not the turret. I need the turret. The turret's not. The red's not printing.
Maybe under roaming. It's in here somewhere. It was at one point. It might have changed. Oh, right there, quad spinner, and then Gaea. So, in here I have a couple things. I have Gaea, which is the basic public release, and then here's Bleeding Edge. So if I were to uninstall Bleeding Edge, and then I would delete everything in this folder, or you can just delete this folder, Deleting Edge, delete. That's only after you uninstall it, so if it's still there, delete that, reinstall it, and then see if that works. Yeah, it was under quad spinner. I couldn't find quad spinner for some reason. I'm dumb that way. So yeah, that worked. So you have a mask you can paint in where you want your lakes to appear at. That way it's not just scattered across your terrain entirely. So that's pretty nice. I figured that would work. It's a very simple mask tool. So if we wanted to go in here and edit the mask and paint one in, let's see if we were to paint one in directly across from here. So over here at a lower elevation, I guess we can do one like right there, maybe. and that just put in some lakes for us. Kept it all broken up and lake-like, but yeah, that seemed to do the trick. So it's pretty nice. Any other questions you guys have? I'm here all night unless you guys are done, so nobody else has anything else they're doing, and if you guys wanted to ask more questions or learn more things, now would be a good time to do it. I'm just talking your guys' ears off and drinking beer, so I guess we could try real quick going over a few other nodes that that are new, like the look dev ones. Sorry if my voice is cracking. After I talk for a while, that tends to happen. So let's throw in tell us about next tutorials and stream. Oh, I could do that, yeah. So stated earlier, I have the Gaea beginners tutorial series that I'm making. That's going to be more of a premium tutorial that you'll purchase. I'll put it on ArtStation and Gumroad. So that's in the works. I do have new tutorials I want to bring out for my YouTube channel, which we'll talk about some of the newer nodes in Bleeding Edge still. But what I want to make is a beach scene. So that'll be in a tutorial. I might save that for a live stream though. I would like to do more live streams than individual videos where I talk about how to build something, but individual videos is easier to get my thoughts across. But I mean, that's just something I've been debating about. But yeah, so in the future tutorial will probably be like a beach scene or an island scene using the island node where you can draw out your islands. And if nobody's ever used that, or if you haven't seen it, it's just this island node that's in the primitives. And it's kind of like any other painting option that you have in Gaea where you just edit your islands. And just for a quick example, we'll just plop one right here and it makes your island. But you see how it's like really weird and really blown out of proportion. Tips on coloring? Yeah, I'm always down to do tips on coloring. I think texturing is super important because you can make what I call a super texture where you just export your overall texture map, but then you export masks to help put in additional details where you need them. So we'll do that too. So we'll do what Tad asked first, and then we'll get into some additional coloring options. So yeah, the future tutorial will be like this island. We'll try to make an island, so using the island node. A lot of people have requested that as well. But you'll see here you get this really funky landscape when you use the island node, so you gotta really break it down. But if you notice, you don't have the options down here that you normally would have to kind of play with the clipping and the clamping, so you gotta put those in yourself using the clamp adjustment. But if you do that, it'll be pin as underlying. You'll be changing the mask around, unfortunately. Yeah, it looks like Jurassic Park. For another time, but would it be possible to walk through going over a full scene workflow, picking a nature reference and building it? I guess right now you are saying it beach scene. Yeah, yeah, Theodore. That is something I want to do. Very highly requested. I will definitely do that, and I will probably do that in the next live stream, actually. So I actually I've essentially worked every day from the beginning of the year up until about this week. So I've been working a lot, and no joke, like every day, even the weekends. But I've taken this whole week off, and I'll probably be doing more live streams this year with you guys. So maybe not tomorrow, but maybe the day after. So Wednesday, I'll probably do another live stream, just because I'll have the time and I'm off. And then we'll go through making an entire scene. We'll do it with the beach scene. We'll actually just do that. So I think that would be a really good idea. So let's go ahead and throw in the multi-fractal here real quick, and apply that to the mask of the multi-fractal. And now you see we added some details here, but we still have this really weird stretching thing. Render workflow as well. Yep, we'll do. So I use Cinema 4D and also Octane Render. So you guys might be using something different. but if you know your 3D application and your rendering application, whether it's a built-in one or a plugin, you should be able to follow along relatively well. But that's the workflow I use, Cinema 4D and Octane. I do use Thea render as well, so if anybody uses Thea, Thea, Thea render, let me know, and I can do more videos for that. I just don't know a lot of people who use that render engine right now. And I do have Blender, but I don't use it often. Unfortunately, I want to use it more. I absolutely love Blender, so don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lie. I don't know a lot about Blender. I do know how to use it on a very basic level, but I don't know enough about it to make videos on it. But I do actually really like Blender. I like the way they're going, and a lot of the changes and features they've added. So I will try to play around with Blender a bit more so I can be more helpful in that front. But for now, I'm not up to snuff on it. Doesn't the draw node work better than the island one? Draw does work pretty well. So what Bob is saying is we have a draw option here. You can make your guides. So we can do this. And then it makes this for you. So it just makes like a basic little landscape. After the beach, can we take a swift look into a full coastline from far up with the mountain ranges and all the nice stuff? It depends on how long this goes on. We might do that. So that would be fun. But I think I might keep that for the actual beach tutorial or live stream, whichever one I decided to do. It might just be a long tutorial video, but I think we'll save that for that, just because it's going to be more akin to what we're doing at the time, if that makes sense. So what Bob is saying is you have the draw node and you draw your basic shape here, and then it creates this mountain. I meant for another day. Oh yeah, for sure. You opened the floodgates. I did. I asked you guys for anything you wanted to help. I literally have nothing else to do all day, so just more nice to just chill and chat with you guys more than anything. All right, so back to draw. So we have the mountain here, and this is what he's saying, and you can go back in here and let's add a few more things in here just so we have a little more intricacy, like that. And then you can add additional things with this, so we can do, you can actually add your island to that. I don't know why you would, because you'll just get a ridiculous look to it, but plus it's a mask, so you would have to input a height map to it to get what you want. Not connected to that. Come on. It's being weird, but this is what he's saying. Use draw to create your base shape. It's being buggy again. Draw. There we go. There we go. All right. And then from here, you would add stuff to it to make it look more like a beach. So we can do, we got to add some more stuff to it that makes it more interesting. So let's experiment for a minute. So let's take that and let's use multifractal. I kind of broke it down a bit, so we got to play with the size a bit. Probably increase the fractal gain. Maybe kind of like that. Introduce a little more variation. Smoothness. Maybe not that much smoothness. And you can see here, like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, multifractal is extremely utilitarian. Like, you can just do so much with it. I recommend using it when you can, because it's a really nice fractal to play with. The reason why I just know a lot about multifractal is because I've been using quad spinner products for a really long time, back when I was using Vue a lot of the time. And you saw in there when I was going through the app data, I had Helios in there, and they don't even sell Helios anymore. So I mean, I've been using products from them for a long time. Or the MDK. If anybody used the material development kit that they made a long time ago, even to this day, whenever I use Vue, which is not as often as it used to be, but when I do use Vue and I'm making a landscape in it for whatever reason, that's usually the first thing I go to is the MDK to this day. And it's been close to 10 years since that's come out. Draw multifractal, so we're getting our landscape in. So let's just make things really simple here. We're just add the erosion. And we'll just do a small amount of erosion. And then we're going to use, let's see, coast. And I haven't played with coast a lot, so I know they moved it to a different area and added some different changes to it, but we'll I haven't used it a whole lot, so we're going to learn together, I guess. So the intensity, I imagine, is how strong you want your coast to be, and then the water level will be like where the water starts and ends. That's probably self-explanatory. This is a tangent pitfall question. What made you switch from Vue to something like C4D? That's not so much of a tangent, actually. I really love Vue. I think Vue is a really good program, but Eon Software just kind of went in a direction that was not financially sustainable for me, where I had a perpetual license and I just was able to get new updates or new versions of Vue as they came out for extremely cheap, actually. So I was actually considered a tutor or an educator to Eon Software, so I got really huge discounts. So I bought Vue at full price a long time ago, back before I even met my wife. And I bought it at full price. And it was probably like the first big major purchase I made. I was 18 at the time, I think. Maybe 18, barely turning 19, around there. And it was the first major purchase I ever made when I got my first job. It was like $4,000 or something like that. But I had saved up for 2.5 years to get it. So I was still living with my parents. I bought it and I started playing around with it. And it was a big purchase for something that I knew nothing about. That's the scary part. I knew nothing about 3D art. It's just I was looking at, I really like nature. I love nature. That's why I kind of want to be a pilot so I can see it from above and from below. And I wanted to make it. So I guess it is going to be a tangent. Sorry. Anyways, so I started making out my 3D landscapes and I started really liking the program more and more. I started using it every day and it was a good escape from the monotony of every day. So I escaped from the real world, was able to get into my own, essentially. So it was really great. So I started learning it. And then I was like, hey, that's a really interesting thing. So I'm going to actually record how to do this so I can remember how to do it later, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to forget. I like to say I forget things and I'm stupid, but it's really just I have a hard time recalling information immediately when I think about it. It's like that tip of the tongue kind of thing. So it's like I don't want to deal with that. I'm going to make a video so I can go back and watch it and then remind myself. But I'm also going to do it because I'm pretty sure there's people out there that want to know how to do this too, who might not know how, and this is an interesting way to work through it. For instance, using the, if we go back to one of my old Vue videos, I have a option to blend in different masks together to get procedural data on a height map, which was probably my most viewed video for a long time because you can't use procedural fractal noise on a height map in Vue. But I was able to blend in a procedural terrain and a regular height map together using the mask from the height map on a procedural terrain, and then we got procedural details. So it was probably my most viewed video. That's no longer the case now. It's changed in newer versions of Vue, so that workflow doesn't work, but that's what I made my video on. And then at that point, I was like, well, I'm just going to do tutorials all the time then, because that blew up and people liked it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make more. So that's how I started. But then they just changed their model after they're bought out by, I can't remember what company bought them. I think it starts with a B or something like that. But they changed their model, and I lost like my my educator license or whatever. So where I first bought Vue for like $3,000 or $4,000. All the new releases after I started making videos, they kind of just recognized what I was doing. They actually gave me a huge discount. So all the new releases of Vue I got for like $500, and it was great. I didn't have to spend a lot of money, and I got this big like discount, this educator discount. and I was able to get new versions of Vue over and over and over again, and then they changed the model, and now I can't afford to buy the new ones. So I just wait for a long time until I have enough money saved up, and then I might buy it. But I bought Vue. I can't remember what version it was. I haven't used it in a while. But it was when they introduced exporting clouds as VDBs. I was like, that right there is enough for me to buy it. So I did. And now I can export VDBs. And then Cinema 4D, same thing with Cinema 4D. I just get discounts with them. And I can actually afford, even with their was it S22 subscription model now, they give me kind of a slight decrease, like a discount, just because I'm a tutor on it, for the annual version, which actually is not that badly priced even as a baseline in my opinion. But I can't get a perpetual license for it anymore. I guess I just don't have a big enough influence, I guess. But Cinema 4D is a little bit more. I have to stick with it because Vue, I can't do a lot of stuff I want to do in it. I can't use GPU rendering, which is what I want to do. So all my favorite programs are moving to a subscription base, but I get discounts on 2 of them. I get a discount on Octane and a discount on Cinema 4D. So I'll stick with those 2, I suppose. Anyways, back to Coast. Sorry. You remember that? You should try more Blender. Yeah, I agree, Tad. I should try more Blender. I have it downloaded right here. I just haven't opened it and used it. 2.82. So I do plan on it. I really do. I just have to find time to do it. It's a whole new 3D application to me. So I'm gonna have to finagle my way around it. Some of the things confuse me too, like this stuff over here. I know is a lot of like different rendering options and things like that, but displacing a plane in Blender is probably easy to somebody who's used it a lot, but to me, I was like, how the heck do I displace this? Like, I have my plane in, like I do like object, and I do add, I guess, mesh, and then what is my plane? And I know a lot of it has to do with like hotkeys and like shortcuts and whatnot. Learning it too, but it's much easier than other software. It's this version of Blender, since 2.8, I think it's a lot easier than other programs. But before 2.8, there's no way in hell you would have gotten me to open it. And yeah, you would use a modifier. So the modifiers are over here somewhere. You got the modifier properties right here. You add a modifier and it'll be a deform. I think it's going to be under displace. And then in here you would input your, I guess, apply it. And then maybe I did it too soon. Modifier, and then texture, I think. Brush, texture, plain, new, it's something. But yeah, you'd use a modifier, but it's a little bit more little small clicks here and there, and I just got to figure out a good workflow that works for me first before I get into it a lot. But in Cinema 4D, it's easy. I just make a plane, which it's super easy to get to, and then you use a displace modifier just like you would in Blender, but the displace modifier is just easier to work around in, I guess. I don't know. I just like the workflow in Cinema 4D, but I do want to get more into Blender because it would save me so much more money every year if I just go to Blender. And Blender has a lot of cool built-in features that you have to pay extra for in other programs. So it already has a really impressive renderer, physical renderer. It already has an extremely impressive GPU renderer, first of all. That's the more important one. And its volumetrics for what you get out of a free program is just phenomenal. So I really want to move to Blender and probably do exclusive Blender videos and tutorials. I just got to spend some time to learn it first. So, and yeah, there are a bunch of tutorials. Blender Guru, I actually know, I wouldn't say on a very personal level, but I've actually talked with them for hours on end through like chats that we've had in other programs where he's taught me stuff about Blender, like on a one-on-one basis kind of. So I wouldn't say we're on first name basis. Back when Blender Guru was just operated by a single man, That's what I'm talking about when they first started. So yeah, we have island, and then we have draw. So this is how you kind of go about your workflow with draw. You got your multifractal, your erosion, then your coast. In island, you make your island, and this is actually better if you make a lot of small complex, or not complex, but a lot of small islands. They are getting close to wounding Autodesk. My goodness, they are such a disruptor. So if anybody has any idea of like what the wireless industry is like, and I'm not talking about like cell phones, I'm talking about consumer wireless products like routers and backhauls and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that I used to work with. There was Canbium, which was Canopy, which was owned by Motorola. So Motorola made a product called Canopy, which is this wireless access point that you would put on a house. It would point towards a radio tower, and it would beam you wireless internet, so you can get internet out in the boonies if you wanted. They were bought out by a company called Canbium, but they sell their products for like thousands of dollars each. Then people that worked for Canopy got tired of that business model, so they left and they split off a company called Ubiquiti. And Ubiquiti makes a lot of wireless consumer grade products for like a quarter of the cost that Cambium makes. And they were such a huge disruptor to that market, and they had actually taken over a lot of the market for that industry. It's kind of the same thing with Blender. Blender has taken over a lot of the 3D industry in some areas, to the point where people who are like requiring people to have these subscription-based models or whatnot are actually bleeding customers, because Blender's becoming such a nice, stable program that you can do everything in for the cost of nothing. So it's I like the way it's going. I like it when there's a product that comes out that's community driven and supported, rather than you have this big. It's kind of like Ubuntu. If you think about Ubuntu back in the day, before Canonical became this really big, overarching Linux distribution company, Ubuntu was really nice because it came in and disrupted the Debian market quite a bit. And Fedora, which was like a Red Hat kind of business Linux, was split off from Red Hat, which uses a different kernel than Ubuntu. It's like a Debian based. I can't remember what the it's like a KD something, not KD. I can't remember what it's called, but they kind of split. They had two different types of Linux variations. One was Debian, the other one was something else. I'll just call it Red Hat because it's not Debian based. Came out, was super stable, was nice and glossy, and it had a really awesome packet manager that automated a lot of stuff that kept people from not using Linux. So they came in and disrupted the whole Linux market and everything, and now it's used on pretty much everything. But the bad part is that Canonical became a very big company, and even though Ubuntu is still free, some of the other stuff that you get from them, like professional support, which I understand should be not free, but they kind of destroyed the overall like community support option for it, which was a bad business move in my opinion. Can I link my... You can link whatever you want, man. Yeah, now they're in need of some disruption. Yep. I think the disruptor needs to be disrupted again. And other people have tried doing that. So you have like Arch Linux tried to disrupt them, but they didn't quite do it fully. Google tried to disrupt them with Android, but I mean, now we know where that's at. Everybody has an Android phone. Unfortunately, you don't have any other options other than iOS and Android. But then they tried to disrupt Google by using their own Ubuntu phone that ran Ubuntu, but they never released that. And the variations that you can get on it are not that great. So yeah, that was another tangent. I apologize for that. But yeah, go ahead and link whatever you want, Tad. You can link other renders that you've done, tutorials that you recommend, anything that will help the community learn other than just me myself doing it. Whatever you can do to help, that's all cool. So island clamp, we gotta clamp this down, but we have to actually attach it to something that gives it something to clamp, because you can't clamp a mask, which is essentially what this is. maybe we can. Maybe let's. Nah, we're not gonna be able to do it. So we got to throw something in there. I'm just gonna use basic purlin. Plug that into the mask, and then we'll plug that into the clamp. We'll actually make a new clamp. Let's make a new clamp. And the company that I work for was actually a disruptor in the storage industry. And I'm not opposed to telling people who I work for. I work for a company called Pure Storage. And they actually came in and disrupted the storage market, which was predominantly held by Dell EMC and Commvault, or not Commvault, but DataVault or some other. There's like 2 other companies that held the majority of the market, but the person who made Pure Storage came in and built an all-flash storage, so SSDs, but extremely fast, extremely redundant storage arrays that are super expensive, but they are well worth their price in my opinion. They disrupted that storage industry, and they are still disrupting it. So I do like people that come in and disrupt stuff. I heard of it. No, I have never heard of that. Fatty Dove Racing SSD. Is that something that I can look up and be relatively child friendly? Fatty Dove. What is it? Racing SSD? Linus made a video on it. Oh. To go through and find that. If Linus made a video on it. Quick boot up, shockproof. High speed stability, 2.5-inch SSD, internal SSD. Quick boot up, shockproof. Interesting. Fatty Dove. Huh. That's interesting. 480 gigabytes. I guess I'll have to look at that a little bit more, but that's funny. Fatty Dove. I like their sticker that they have on it. That's quite funny. Is it actually a like a real SSD that works though, or is it like an April Fool's joke? Let's go ahead and decrease the clamp. So that'll decrease the overall values that we have from our island, which is cool. Something about there. So now it's a lot more, we can work with it a lot more. So instead of having this unreasonable atrocity, we now have this. So that worked a lot better. There's a DRAM cache and all. Nice. All right, well, I'm going to look at it a little bit more. So, hey, Bob, if you're still here, draw does work, like you said. You can make an island with it if you want. But, again, you can use island and get some cool, reasonable results from it as well. This is going to create more of a harsh edge for you to work with to make a coast. Let's go ahead and add a... Let's add a new one. Let's do shatter. Let's see what shatter looks like on that. Yeah, so that looks really cool. Let's shatter that up a bit. I've been using this SSD for over 20 years in my racing laptop without a single failure. Power draw is a little high. Needs around 1 to 2 pounds of birdseed per day. I love Amazon reviews sometimes. Oh my goodness. If you want to see really funny reviews on Amazon, look up reviews on like the Titan Volta or the NVIDIA Titan card, the Volta card. Oh my god, those things are so funny. People just, it's like, does it play Minesweeper? Yeah, it plays Minesweeper at a good like 10 frames per second or something like that. It's good. All right, yeah, humanity is great sometimes. Sometimes I just want to punch people in the face because they just are ridiculous, but most of the time I'm just like, yeah, people are usually pretty good. I love humanity sometimes. All right, so that'll be like what we have for an island right now. So let's add coast to this and see what we've got going on. By the way, shatter used to be landform. If anybody doesn't know that, so eventually when you get newer versions of Gaia, if you use the landform, it used to be shatter. So, or shatter used to be landform. We no longer have landform anymore. It's now shatter, and it'll be under the look dev. All right, Bob. I just wanted to show the difference between using a draw and a island. So with draw, this is what we ended up with. Oops, it's got to load up all of this stuff here. There we go. This is what we kind of ended up with draw, and I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, granted. But with island, we do get more of a island-esque look out of it because we have those sharp edges that we would get that we can erode using something like coast, I guess. So you could get some pretty decent results, but you just have to tame the island node a bit to get the results you want, because initially it's yeah, draw makes good archipelagos. You are correct. That's probably what I could say just to sum it up, is it will make good archipelagos. And if anybody used geoglyph back in the day, that was one of my all-time favorite nodes to use, was archipelago. Struck me as a great tool if you could use a black and white image to maybe make a little outline of Earth. Yeah, something that gave it kind of like a bump map, or like a displacement map almost, and then you can add like a water level to it, so you can get some actual 3D water levels in your map. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Runs Notepad at a smooth 24 frames per second. Yeah, exactly. There's somebody in there that was talking about it like running on Windows 98 or something, and he was like, it ran Windows 98 so fast that every time I moved my mouse, everything I wanted to do was already done instantly without me even noticing, or something like that. I can't remember, but it was funny. Yeah, you guys got it all down though. It's archipelagos, draws good for archipelagos. Funny fact, just to get you guys on something else here, I used to call archipelagos, and I don't know why, because I knew what the word was, but that's just how I always said it. And then one day I was talking with my brother about it, and he was like, why do you keep saying archipelago? And I'm like, I really don't know. He's like, you're an idiot. It's archipelago. I'm like, I know. I've known this forever. Like, when I read the word, I say archipelago. But when I say it, I say archipelago. So I actually had to train myself not to say it. Yeah, same. It was quite the journey, speech journey for me, I suppose. So we got coast here. Let's see if we can actually get some results. So the few times that I've used coast, I haven't been able to get it to work properly. So let's make a mask for it just to... So a good way to mask in or out these really hard seams that you get from like the ground level to where our landscape starts, right around these areas, is to use a mask. And a good way to do that is just use the drawing one, the mask. Attach that to Shatta, and we'll attach that to there, and hopefully this will work. And let's go to our mask and let's draw it in. And we'll just kind of do it on the outside more, but kind of encompass the inside, because I don't want it to come to the top very much. So we're just going to lightly go just on the outline of it here. It's kind of dark. My mic's in the way, so if it gets really loud, it's because I'm talking into it more now. So more like that. I did get on it a little bit there, but not much. All right. So we got our mask. And I don't think it did much. Let's decrease the water level. I know if we decrease it super far, it starts doing something like right there, but it doesn't do what I want it to do. There's our beach right there. That's where our beach starts, is in these areas. And I guess the nice thing about the coast node is that it doesn't affect, like if you use the coast the coastal erosion in World Machine, it affects the island the same around the entire edge of it. And I get maybe that's the case because I'm using the mask here, so let's get the mask out. Yeah, okay, so I can see what's happening here. The water level's so low now that it's affecting our top part, so it's a good thing that we use the mask, otherwise it would look not that great. And so I would probably say if you're going to use the coast option, you probably want to be throwing in a mask. Otherwise you're probably going to get something funky. The intensity here, it looks like if we keep it low, it's not going to obviously not affect our landscape all that much, so let's turn it all the way up. Then the transition size will be like the transition from like the shore to the beach, or even like rocky areas, so you can make like rocky crops or rocky outcrops or something like that. At least that's what it was in earlier versions of this before they've changed it. Looks like these two options aren't going to change that much, but if we were to add our water now, interesting. The water in this version of Bleeding Edge is really weird. It's more like a texture map that's tiles across the landscape. They've changed it up quite a bit. Okay, that's interesting. It looks a lot different for sure. Let's close that out. And water level. I can't get the water level quite precise, but about right in this area is where our beach will start. And then this will be like the rocky cliff face that you would want to texture. For clarity, because I'm a late entry into the stream, are you using 1, 2, 29, whatever? Jeff, I am using the Bleeding Edge version 1.2.0.1. So that's the latest Bleeding Edge version. Everything that we did in here, though, I tried to do for people who don't use Bleeding Edge, but introduce some of the newer nodes alongside what you can use. But then the process after that is about the same. So if you go to the earlier version of the earlier parts of the stream, we were making like a mesa range. You can use the multi-fractal, but I use terraces instead, just so people who don't have it can follow along. But the process after you implement multi-fractal is the same as if you're following with the terraces. And that's the only change. Yeah, that's the latest version. Gelatin moving under the island. Yeah, it looks like gelatin. It's so weird because if you go to, let's look at the EAP. This is just the regular, like, production ready Gaia. And if we were to just add the water here, you can see how the old water looked. Let's throw in a light node. Oh, height. It was there. We don't want a texture input, or do we have to have one? I think we might need one. Yeah, all right. You probably don't see it over here because it's cut off. I just realized that. I have a ultra-wide monitor, so I have to scale this to fit properly. There we go. And then, where's my landscape? Where'd it go? Right there. Okay, and then there's light. So if we were to look at the water here, it just kind of looks more like water. And then if we look at the other one, it's like this moving texture map or noise map or something. I think it might be bugging out or something, or maybe that's intentional with their new rendering system that they have setting up. LYF. I'm afraid that reference is lost on me. Life rough. Ultra wide life rough. Yeah, okay, I got it now. It took me a minute. I am so slow. Sorry. Yeah, we're gonna turn the water off. Yeah, ultra wide life. It's rough, man. I tell you what. All right, so that'll be like, well, colloquial. Yeah, exactly. I kept saying "lif" instead of "life" in my head. And 64 production water equals PS3. Yeah. PS2. I guess PS3 will work too. So that'll be, this is just a very, honest to God, this is just basic island and basic draw. So either method will work, but I think you'll get better results if you use the actual island node, especially if you're making islands. This one probably won't provide you, unless you're able to get a really strong beach going on, probably wouldn't be that great. Sea ranges, yeah, it looks like there's undersea ranges. It's using like a height map or something under that. It's really weird. Could just be a bug though, or it could be intentional, but currently being worked on. We can look at the cartography real quick, because that's new, and that one's interesting if you want to start making cartography renders. Kind of just outlines all the different shapes and elevations of your landscape. It's not going to work so well on this one. I got it in the wrong input. Whoops. Input, let's do it on this one. Rebuild. Nope, it's not gonna, it's still being kind of buggy. Oh no. It might be sliding the terrain height map. Yeah, that's what it looked like. It definitely looked funky. So the cartography one's going to be kind of, it's still taking in the mask that I had from here for some reason, but yeah, if I reset it, save it out, and reopen it, it probably will work, but it's just going to give you these really cool ISO lines, cartography lines, whichever way you want to put it. And if you increase the resolution, I'm sure they'll increase the resolution of those as well after they're built out. This will be really nice for like displaying elevations and steepness of your landscape to people who need those kind of things. Really good for like data science experts or geographers who use programs like this to help build out 3D maps of certain features that they're taking care of. So that could be really helpful in some ways, especially if you have it to scale. Come on. Now it's not going to display at all. Alright, well, that was fun. I'll come back to that later. Right now I don't actually have a use to use the cartography one, but I thought it was pretty cool. I just don't need to use it. Any other questions? So that's the island. That'll be the basic structure of what we take when we're doing the island tutorial. So if you guys want a good heads up on what we're doing, that will be what that I plan on doing. But we're actually going to make multiple islands. We're not just going to do one. Did the guy post his render? No, I don't think he did. Tad, if you're oh, you did. I don't see it. I see like where you asked, but I don't see where you posted it. But now, yeah, I'm curious now too. I like seeing what you guys do. It's, yeah, maybe YouTube ate it. YouTube's kind of weird. But I do like seeing what you guys do too. I mean, it doesn't always have to be about me in these streams. We can definitely see what you guys are doing. I'm up for that. Let's just play around a little bit more here while we're waiting on other things coming in. No, I can't see the ArtStation link. I'm pretty sure I don't have anything set up where you can't post links. I was hoping to get destroyed a little more when I shared the other day. What did you share the other day? It could be a stream setting. I don't think there's anything in YouTube that stops people from being able to post stuff though. I don't think so. And if there is, well, a lot of playbacks on this one. I didn't mean to set it up that way because I am all for people being able to share stuff. Yeah, nothing in here blocking it. Oh, you rendered in Clarice. Okay. I actually haven't been on the page in a minute. So are you just under Jeff on the Facebook page as well? My dog's freaking out. Yeah, right there. Is that the one you're talking about, Jeff? All right. Let's take a look at it. Did I post on it? I don't think I did. So rendered in Clarice, huh? Overall, the terrain shape's nice. So when I look at pictures in the Facebook chat or group before I make a comment on it, this is kind of like what I'm kind of playing through in my head before I make a comment. So the overall terrain shape is nice, except for these spiky parts right here. Those are features that you typically don't want in a render. Stuff like this is great. These little like peaks that you have right here or right here, those are great, but what you don't want are these tiny little spiky things. You typically don't want those. It is nice work though. The lighting's really nice. It has a really good ambience to it, and I like these the light shafts that you have coming in right here. The texturing is nice. I think you're using the flow lines and the erosion just a tad bit too much. You want to break those up. Otherwise, it's going to look really unnatural. And I know it's really easy to use the flow and deposit lines and maps from the erosion to texture stuff out, but typically they will follow the flow paths, but you want to break them up a little bit procedurally. So use like a mask, like a Perlin mask, to mask in the snow texture a bit more. And I guess I could break it down for you and show you. And yeah, we don't see the link, Tad. You thought the spikes were people walking on the mountain, saying, praising hallelujah to the sun. Praise the sun. Yeah, to break down the spikes, I'm just trying to go over your comments while I'm breaking this down. So to break down these spikes, it's actually probably more due to your base noise and your erosion more than anything. But if you meant more like use a noise or something to kind of break up the snow placement, yeah, use a noise to break it up, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a minute. But yeah, overall, I love that atmosphere. That atmosphere is nice. The clouds are a little bit lower. Are you using like an HDRI in this? The heal node would fix those spikes to some degree. What I have found is that you want to use the healing node sparingly, and you want to be selective with it. So I guess you could mask those parts out and use the heal node, but you want to be extremely selective with it. But you would want to make your base terrain less susceptible to this to begin with, and then using the heal node very sparingly is the workflow that I would personally go through. Because if you're getting those on your landscape, that just means you have too much noise to begin with, and when you erode it out, you're going to cause problems. The heal node's nice for that, but the heal node should mostly be used on height maps that you brought in through like DEM data, digital elevation models, more so than trying to fix it on your landscape that you're making. Aiden Yankin's Skyrig. I don't know what that is. I do like the clouds. I wish they were just a little bit more sharp. Unfortunately, they're just not too sharp. And are you using like a fog volume to get your fogginess in this? Ah, okay. Okay, yeah, if you're using a fog volume, unfortunately HDRIs in most 3D applications are going to be impacted by fog volumes, so a good way to ensure that that doesn't happen is export like a Z-depth mask, or just, I guess you can export from, I don't know if Clarice is capable of doing it or not, but a composition file, I guess, where you have all the different masks for your objects, and you can mask out the terrain and then put your sky in afterwards in something like Photoshop or something else. That way it doesn't impede on the detail or the color light values of your HDRI, which could make your renders look a lot better and stand out a lot more. I wish Tad would post his art station. That would be nice. We can look at what he's talking about. Mine is, I guess you could type it in. Mine's gonna be, I think I just have it under PWN, I suppose. That is creepy. Dylan Yarbrough is what I have it under. dyarbrough.artstation.com. And if you want to, you can go ahead and follow. That'd be great. I'm going to be posting a lot more to it as time goes on. I just haven't done much with it yet, but I plan on posting more to it. I do have some stuff in the store already, but I'm slowly importing more and more into the store. I just haven't gotten around to it. I mostly use Gumroad to sell stuff, but I want to use both. Just kind of have more options out there. But yeah, this is it so far. It's new, so there's not a lot of stuff there, but that's mine right there. And if Tad can, oh, Tad followed. Let's see. Right there. I'll follow you back. Anybody who follows me, who joins the line streams, I will go ahead and follow back. I don't see why not. Oh yeah, that's the donut one. Yeah, I remember that. He did, so he did the tutorial a long time ago, and then he did a new version of this with the newer release of Blender. So he has two of the same tutorial, but it's for different releases. So yeah, that looks really good. I like that you got little sprinkles dripping off right there. Yeah, this looks awesome. Nice thick frosting you have on there. Holy crap. And that coffee looks awesome. That's what I want right now is coffee. So this is what you wanted to show us, Tad? This definitely looks like, yeah, thick as yeah. I like it though. It's just a nice thick frosting, just how a donut should be. If you're gonna be eating a donut, you might as well have it be as really unhealthy as possible. Yeah, this is good work. This is really good work. Yeah, all those eyes. I love it. I love that stuff. I want to make more stuff like that in the future. I'm going to stick with landscapes for the time being, but I eventually want to move into more stuff like that. I like abstract, creepy art. It's good stuff. I actually have like no critiques on this. The lighting is great. Everything about it. I don't see like any weird anomalies around the edges of your plate. So you have, or anything else, like you have very smooth meshes going on. Even your texture on your donut, and your donut in general just has so much variation to it. It's not all uniform that it looks really good. So kudos on that one. That one is great. I like that. Even the lighting, I like. The shadows are nice. I think, okay, if there's one thing that I would probably change on this is the shadows. I think they're just a tad bit too light under the plate. Like right here in this shadow area, it's really, really good. But I would think it would be a little bit darker under the plate as well. I don't know what you used to render this out, but I would think that it would probably be darker towards the edges of whatever is casting the shadow, and then gets thinner and lighter as it goes out. But I mean, that's such a nitpicky thing. That's not really anything to worry about. So I really like that. It's really good. Let's look at these other ones that Jeff had real quick. I mean, no critiques on this other than just those shadows. There's just nothing else to say. That is really good. I really like that. Overall, the shape of the landscape on this is good. If you guys have anything else that you want to look at that you probably want some critiques on, go ahead and send me them, and I'll look at them while we're killing time. I like the details that you have going on. Like, if you look up here, you actually did something really good here. So up here, you have a lot of variation in your snow mask, which is really nice. And I think you are following the flow lines just a tad bit too much down here, but after seeing this top part, that looks really good. And I like how the snow coming down on the taluses right here. You could use a mask, use the mask node to draw out selections to mask out these lower edges, and then break up this lower part of the snow so there's more noise to it, so it's not this straight line that just looks a little bit unnatural. It'll break it up a bit. That's about the only thing that you really would want to be adding to the ends of those. It might be too steep in the sense that like if you're looking at it as like a natural real world landscape, maybe it might be too steep, but the nice thing about Gaia is that you can pretty much make whatever you want. And this could be something on like a different planet, or it could be like a small section of a mountainside that we're not getting the full perspective of. But I like the detail in it. Let's look at this one. Yeah, and again, I mean, you got really nice snow covering here. I actually made a tutorial a while back that you can use like the slope selector to select some of the slopes on your landscape and mask in additional snow that kind of got powdered in as wind blew to kind of break up the overall snow mask. That might be something useful for you to watch. I'd have to go through and find it, but it's not ideal for exact realism, but it is nice for small variation in your snow mask. It could be really helpful. And again, just down here, I would just use a mask to break up the snow line a bit, just so it's not all uniform the way it is. But that right there is pretty good. The lighting itself in this, I don't know what it is that you're trying to go for this one. I think it was more just visual references to your overall landscape. The lighting itself isn't bad. The shadows probably would be a little bit softer, but I'm assuming that it wasn't supposed to be like a final render because you have this chunk over here that you didn't hide. So just more of a visual reference. It is 10:18 here. I'm in Mountain Standard Time. Yeah, that's what I thought, Jeff. Yeah, it looks good. Overall shape looks pretty good. Detail's fine. But yeah, it's Mountain Standard Time here. So it's 10:19 here. So I'm a little bit ahead of you, or behind, I suppose. You're ahead of me. So what I want to do regarding Sauce Boss's question is I want to start these more at where a lot of people actually come and view my videos. So that's around 5, 6, maybe 7, maybe a little bit later. I don't want to go much later than 9 o'clock to start for these, but I want to keep it to Saturday or Sunday. Typically probably Saturday, and start around that time. But if you have a better time that will work for you, let me know. I'll try to make as much amends as I can, but I can't control time, obviously, or the sun, so I can only start when I can start. But if you want to watch these more in the PM for you, I can do the time conversion and see if it'll work for me, because I am a night owl. I can stay up all night because I work a afternoon and evening shift for work, so my sleep schedule isn't very basic. So yep, that's about it, Jeff. I did make a poll. I made a poll on my channel. I asked, let's see if I can find it. Let's see. So we got, where did they put him? Where did they